Welcome back, everybody, to Tactics Ogre Reborn. We are going to continue to move along the forward path, which in this case is going to be going into the desert and investigating the remainder of the fortresses. This is a... Remember, is this a necessary battle or not? I don't know. I feel like this is a necessary battle that just sort of popped up. I could be wrong, though. Looks like there's a boss there in the center that's a Valkyrie. So, this is something, I guess. It's something, or something, I don't know. Requires me to actually know what the game's about. Anyways, cutscene.
So they move from Barnisha. They'll find these lines well defended. We will not let them reach the open desert.
Open desert? This is the only desert I'm aware of on the map. Unless there's an invisible desert between this battlefield and the town in front of it. So I think we're just gonna go straight after the boss in this case. I don't really feel like messing around with everything that's on this board. Dragons I'll have to probably deal with anyways, but I'm looking at the snake ladies that can charm you, and I'm like, I don't want one of my guys to get charmed and then suddenly they're happen to Berserker and they proc both Berserk and Sanguine Assault and just fucking decimate my entire team that's clumped together. Of course, I could have seen that earlier and been like, I'm not gonna bring them with me. I've decided that probably the smarter thing to do is when I bring a sorcerer or mage in to combat is to start equipping them with not only a spell that they're good with, but a spell that they are either a bolting spell or an area spell that is good against the majority of the people on the map. Now, in all likelihood, what I'm saying is probably going to be forgotten after, I don't know, 1 or 2 sessions of me recording that I'm going to forget to start. I'm going to be like, oh, I need a sorcerer because there's some golems on the field. I should bring him along so I get golem bane, or the spell that basically upgrades everybody's attacks against golems. For 1 attack. But yeah, I mean, if you take a look, if you go pre-battle, you have the option go pre-battle. Not everything is like that, particularly if they're trying to surprise you with a twist. It's like, you thought this guy was dead. Well, he's actually alive, and here he is. Like when we fought Vice on the Sungeon Wields. They wouldn't let me see the battlefield because guess what? That's where he's at. And that would be a spoiler. But if you have the ability to look at the field, which most of these battles do let me do, what I would, excuse me, what I would suggest, what I should do is I should make sure that my mage or probably sorcerer has, you know, not just the spell that is good against, you know, the majority of the people on the board, but also to bring some sort of, you know, magic that they're aligned with, I guess. I don't know. In this particular case, it looks like there's a lot of looks like I picked the wrong way. I was about to say my sorcerer's got thunder, and thunder's not good against ground. So, in all likelihood, I should have either not picked him, or I should have given him the ability to use wind magic, but I'm not super concerned about that because the majority of my main party, oh well, I wouldn't say the majority, maybe a large percentage of my party runs wind magic, including Canopus, Celia. I'm trying to think who else runs wind magic around here. No. Maybe my Berserker does. I don't know. I can't remember if he's wind or not. I've changed a couple people over. Canopus is the one that I don't change because his class basically is a wind-based class that benefits off of leaving him under wind element. Whereas Casual, I don't really know what to do with her. None of her attacks seem to be elementally based. So I may just change her over to healing, or not healing, to light. So she's not bad against anything, but she's not necessarily good against anything other than dark. I recently was on the TikToks and ran across a song that very popular. I'm sure everybody knows, or most people know about. It's such a fucking earworm, you know, one of those songs where you've got like a really, really addictive chorus, and like you listen to it, and you like for hours after that, you just hear that refrain in your head, you know, the one that only love can hurt like this, and it's, I don't know, it's a very repetitive song, you know, as some songs are, you know, that just sort of get stuck in your head. Like there was a Britney Spears song many years ago. I don't remember exactly the title of it, but I like to call it Hollywood Girl. Maybe that is the name. And it's very repetitive as well. It's isn't she lovely, this Hollywood girl? You know. Anyways, this song gets stuck in your head. You're trying to go to bed and sleep, and you keep playing this refrain over in your head, and you're just like, I gotta get rid of this. So someone taught me. I don't remember if it was on a podcast or what, and I may have said this in a previous playthrough. It's been a while, but you choose a jingle that's catchy enough to be in your head, but not long enough for it to stick. And the one that I always go to because it's in my brain as well because of Jim Gaffigan did a thing about Hot Pockets, and it's like, you know, that's a good, you know, it's a good jingle, but it's not as good as your By Menon. Well, yeah, By Menon is my go-to thing to get rid of stuff in my head, because it's not something that I would, you know, normally use in everyday language. But it just works for me in terms of getting on here. You just go, By Menon. And then you do that a couple of times, and then all of a sudden the song's, you know, sort of been washed out of your brain. Enough for you to relax and go to sleep anyways. Anywho. So one of the things that you would think would happen, and I understand it works better with like a mage type class, but you'd think that you know, the boss character would basically hang back and let the underlings, you know, sort of soften up the team in front of them, you know, your team, their opponents. And you know, because again, if I want to piddle around and kill all these guys, I can do that. But I can quickly, like I guess the speedrun strat would be go directly to boss, kill boss, finish level, get experience. You know, that's obviously the shortest distance between 2 points. It's a little bit, well, maybe it's not luck based because, well, I don't know, to be honest. I feel like it may be like the Advance Wars sort of thing, where if you make this move's gonna come out, and if you make that move, then this other move's gonna come out. You know what I mean? And there's very little, because of the way the programming setup, there's very little deviation from the way the computer or the AI is going to react to your moves. So when you play, not to get too distracted, but when you play Advance Wars 1 on hard, basically there is a series of incorrect moves, and there is 1 or 2 correct solutions to beating those missions. Well, at least with an S rank, anyways. Anyway. I wonder if that's possible in this game, is sort of what I'm getting at. That's why I love Nestle Crunch. Crunch. We're almost there. See here. Probably won't be able to kill her until we get to our sorcerer. Or, at very worst, probably the White Knight. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is... We might be able to do this with our healer now. Depending on where she's at. Okay, no. No, she's blocked off. Never mind. I was gonna say, I didn't see the guy standing between her and the boss. Oh, but I can do this, so... That'll be fun, right? Oh, by the way, sorry, Casual, I just dealt 200 damage to you. Oh, maybe I can't do this with my... It'll depend. Velocity shift. Well, that changes everything. Because it moves what's-her-face up. Up. Yep, I have Tempest. Bye-bye.
Oh, of redeeming my family's honor.
I do love how, you know, even though they are your enemy, like all of these, the boss characters have like, they give you a little bit of like glimpse into their life story. It's like, I'm not here because I'm a fucking, you know, bigot, you know, person who just loves drinking the blood of my enemies, but like I'm here because I need money for my daughter's surgery. or I'm trying to avenge a fallen comrade. All right, yeah, we have a couple options here. We can go up to Grimsby, I think we'll do, but we'll have to go through this coast. So that's 2 battles there. I'm guessing this is also a battle. So we're gonna try. I'm not doing this on purpose, but we're gonna try to delay, progressing the storyline here for a little bit, at least until I make sure I do all the side quests. Because what I've discovered, inadvertently, is that there are certain story markers, and I should be aware of this as an RPG person, but there are certain story markers that basically cut you off from side quests in the games. So, obviously, in like a lot of RPG games, particularly open world ones, you don't really have to worry about this because either the game is set up requiring you to hit these certain markers before you can progress, or the side quest remains open. I guess an example I could give is in Final Fantasy VII, you lose a character about halfway through the game and you can't get it back. And so while that doesn't prevent you from doing side quests and other things, you lose whatever side quest dialogue for having that person in your party. That's true for all of the characters in 7. If you decide that you're going to play Barrett the entire game, he's going to have a different set of dialogue than Tifa would, than Red 13 would, that Goofy, whoever. And a lot of this stuff's just a lot of it's nothing, because if the character's dialogue was super important, I'm not going to say guaranteed, but generally that dialogue would be included. I mean, that character would become a character next to Cloud that you could not eliminate. You know what I mean? Not to get onto a tangent, I always thought it was sort of odd that when they take Cloud as your main character away from you for a bit, and I always thought it was weird that they picked Sid to be the backup leader of the team. I mean, I understand, if you know what I'm talking about in Final Fantasy VII, I understand you've eliminated a couple characters at that point that could be, the temporary leader of the, whatever you want to call it. I guess you're sort of past Avalanche at that point, but I think Barrett would be sort of the obvious choice because he was kind of leading Avalanche in the beginning of the game. And I'm trying to think if there'd be anybody else other. I mean, I guess Sid makes sense because he's considered the oldest, because Red 13 ages much slower than everybody else. So even though I think Red 13's like 40 or something, in his period he would still just be like a child or a teenager or something. I do enjoy playing these types of games. They can be a little bit monotonous, as you can see, because of the balance, which, again, as I've said before, I don't mind the balance in this game. I understand that, you don't really... Every player's expectation is to try to break the game as quickly as possible. And for the most part, this game will not allow you to break it, at least until you get to the post-game. Not 100% sure how that works though, because I'm also thinking about, well, okay, so you're we're gonna start running, if we haven't already done so, we're gonna start running into whatever you want to call them, challenge dungeons, challenge, you know, they're gonna be sort of side content that you can do to sort of flesh out a little bit more of the storyline. And in doing so, it allows you access to stronger weapons, which will help you break the game. But unlike the rest of this game, it seems to be sort of like, well, here's your level cap. You can't get any higher than this till you progress the storyline. I'm wondering if there's any sort of level cap when it comes to those challenge areas. Like the forest would be a good example. We did the forest earlier. I don't know if there's. It seemed like it was following the the leveling. So as I got stronger, so did the forest. But I wonder if I went back now, if they would all be at like 14 or 20 or something, even though I'm at 36. And sort of the opposite is what I'm thinking is, like, you could, if we haven't already unlocked it, I don't remember because I started recording without actually checking. If we've not already unlocked what they call the Palace of the Dead. The Palace of the Dead is this horribly long dungeon crawling post-game thing that you can do. And because it's like 100 plus rooms deep, there's a good chance that the dungeon isn't isn't level balanced, but it's based on, well, this level 1 room room 1 is those enemies are at, say, level 20, and then you get down to room 5 or room 10, and now they jump up to 30. And then you get somewhere down around level 20 or 40 or 50, and now they're somewhere in, like mid to late 30s. Or maybe even early 40s. And then you get down towards the bottom, and I have to imagine they'd all be max level at that point. So, I could be wrong. Be very wrong. But, I feel like either the game would prevent me from going any deeper than a certain level, at least until the post game, or, like I said, you would run into a wall where your characters can't get any stronger than they currently are until you progress the storyline. But by progressing the storyline, characters won't get any stronger because you haven't progressed the storyline yet, but the characters in the dungeon continue to get stronger. That's what I mean. I've noticed they throw these types of battles in occasionally. Well, this is not a quote-unquote you're fighting the faction, pirate faction, or a rebellion faction, or one of the major clans on the island. Occasionally we'll throw in these like monster battles where you're fighting a bunch of enemies that don't seem to. This can be human-wise wide as well, but you're not. What's the word I'm looking for? There's no boss on this level. You have to wipe everybody out in order to progress. Just fine and dandy, I guess. If float your boat. Makes the level harder, longer to do, but I'm pretty sure everything up this direction that I'm headed, past the coast, is sort of optional. So it's not something that if I do it... Wow, that was devastating. that is devastating. That is ridiculous. I mean, my archer gets the ability to double attack, and some of my weapons seem to deal damage, and then there's like sort of like an after damage. But never have the weapons gone like, okay, well, other than those finishers, there's like there's a couple different finishers that'll hit the enemy twice, but usually they're a little weaker than the others. Siege bow mush. Siege bow smush? Smush. Not really a smush, I guess, with an arrow. It's more like a pierce. Smush would be more like hammer. And then, you know, your sword could be either a pierce or a chop. And your axe would definitely be chop. I guess you could also say instead of pierce, you could say stab for a sword, or a dagger. Definitely would be probably more of a pierce, or I'm sorry, stab. And then I guess the whip would be just a whip. What else? Magic would be whatever element it is. So it'd be like freeze, freeze. Freeze doesn't really make a noise. I guess it would sort of sound like ice. I guess cracking in your glass. Wind is sort of an odd one. Could wind hurt you? No, but can wind pick stuff up? Like you or debris and throw it at you? Yes. Fire, earth, those are all sort of things. If you could pick them up, you could throw them, you can understand why it would hurt. Water would be, I guess, another good one. You're like, oh no, some water hit me. And then it's like, oh no, this water is not actually water, it's actually, you know, I don't know, a raging current, I guess. Or in this case, acid rain is pretty fucking gross. Yes, I polluted the clouds with what is it? Carbon monoxide to the point that it soaked up the pollutants in the atmosphere, and now it's raining acid on you. Aha! Okay, so it's sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide. Reaction with water in the atmosphere primarily from burning fossil fuels. Damages forest, aquatic ecosystems, and infrastructure. It was a major issue in the 70s and 80s. Regulations have reduced the impact, though it still remains a concern. Fun. Mommy, the rain is burning me. Nonsense, honey. Rain doesn't burn, it's a water. It burns, it hurts my skin. Look, leaving welts and not welts, but like leaving spots on my clothes. It's burning your umbrella, Mommy. I don't know if it actually got that bad. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Probably more of like a long-term thing, I imagine. Having not actually been alive during that period when it was concerned. I'm not gonna get on an ego rant, but basically Just always remember that what the everything, according to science, everything has to balance out. So if you add something to a formula, you know, it doesn't go away once you add it. If the water evaporates with whatever you put into it, and it's either going to stay there on the ground after the water evaporates, or it's going to go with the water into the sky. So you have to be aware that everything you do, you know, not necessarily as well, everything has a consequence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that consequence is the end of the world. Try and say. But, you know, like, hey, if I take this car battery and I dump it in the ocean, that's probably not a good idea. But, you know, if I decide that I'm going to pee in the ocean, it's probably not a big deal. Because there are things that would feed on waste naturally, because guess what? Whales and fish and everything else, they don't come up onto land to take a big dump and then go back into the water after they're done to make sure that the ocean stays clean and clear of their piss and poo. However, that being said, if you start introducing things that don't naturally occur in the ocean to the ocean, they're probably going to stay there at least until something removes them. Even if it's only minuscule, fractional, you know, amount of the whole of the ocean. That was a good hit. I like that was good. Got what, 3, 4 more guys left? 4. It looks like 4. Should be able to clean this up here in about a minute or two. Wendigo, what is this? How do I get Wendigo? I must find out how to get Wendigo. Unless it's some sort of draconic spell that only the sorcerers can use, but even if that were true, I would just turn all my mages into sorcerers. So it would be sort of like, oh, here's an upgrade. You get to go from being a, I don't know, I'm going to use a Fire Emblem reference. You get to go from being a cavalier to a paladin. Or a mercenary into a into a hero. Thinking I need to recruit another Viren. I'm not sure how well that would work, though. Like trying to base how good a mage is based on, you know, player character. And that's the end. They put themselves in a perfect diamond formation for me to do this. Oh, he survived. Good for him. You fool.